to the Republicans. that is a mess. And I mean, you could make an argument that the modern Republican Party no longer exists. The traditional kind of Main Street conservative Republican Party that was characterized in so many years by, the Mitt Romneys going back to the more moderate centrists in that party. I mean, it has slowly been evaporating. The days in which we had senators like Jacob Javits in New York, Clifford Case in New Jersey, Edward Brooke in Massachusetts, where there was, in fact, a functioning Republican Party in the Northeast, it's gone. There's like no Republican Party in most of the Northeast of the United States. The party has kind of confined itself to the South and the Southwest, where it does have considerable power. And as you showed in that slide on redistricting, it's got enormously good prospects if you look at history and picking up seats and maybe winning back control of the Congress. But they are just so completely divided between, a common sense element and just the crazies, that it's difficult to see how they reconcile. It's difficult to see how they can move forward so long as the Bard of Mar-a-Lago holds such a sway over the party. I mean, it is stunning when the media has been constantly replaying, the more sensible comments of people like Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and the leadership in the Congress of the Republican Party, and contrasting that with things that they say now. The most recent example being, this effort to put together some kind of commission to look into what happened in the insurrection in our Capitol on January 6th. And it's just, you can see the complete shift over of the most elements of the Republican Party to be totally in the thrall of Donald Trump. And, maybe it's just my own hyper-partisanship, but I think a party that relies on leadership and guidance from Donald Trump, in the end of the day, is going to have a hard time making a case nationally. They can get their strong 35 to 40% that are just totally make America great again people, but they can't get to 50%. There's not a formula there for a Trump-guided, Trump-directed party to get to 50% in national elections. And that is the death knell for the Republican Party at the end of the day. They will squeak by in some states and they will be able to put some things together, but I just don't see them emerging so long as they're the Trump party and not the grand old party.
Will Rogers, I must have been in the 20s or 30s, said, I'm not a member of any organized political party. I'm a Democrat.
Right.
What's it like today, though? Is it the Democrats remarkably seem to be staying together, from AOC and Sanders and Warren on one end to, Joe Biden and Mark Kelly and Joe Manchin on the other end? Can that last?
Yeah, we have our intra-party feuds and debates and discussion, but I think in part because Biden, through some of the proposals that we just walked through, has seemed to veer a little more to the progressive left. That has satisfied a lot of the folks who are more on the liberal side of the Democratic Party, and has made it more possible for Biden, I think, to hold that party together. So and as the incumbent party, Biden actually has what we call the bully pulpit. So he has got the opportunity to kind of placate the various factions within the party. And I think he's done so far a pretty masterful job of reaching out and touching all the different elements of the Democratic Party coalition. And that has been reassuring to people.
The Biden administration can go one of two ways right now. It can either, get as much done as possible within a bipartisan context, hoping with the theory that will set the Democrats up best for 2022, because it will show that the country can govern in the center. And that's one theory. The competing theory is that for the Democrats to win, they need to make the biggest difference in as many lives as possible. And you're never going to get Republican votes to do that. So go as big as you can on your own. do it through, reconciliation in the budget with just 50 Democratic votes, blow up the filibuster if you have to address the other issues, and get everything you can, because you're never going to get anything again for the next 4 to 8 years after 2022. Which way do you think the Democrats are going to go?
I hate to dodge the question by saying both, but I mean, I will, because I think it's a two-step. I think Biden's natural inclination is to try to be the guy who gets everyone in the room and says, come on, let's see if we can't get this done. I mean, his instinct is to follow the bipartisan, let's bring folks together around the table, let's try to get the real work done. I think he will pursue that up to the point in which it looks like there's just no willingness on the part of the Republicans to reciprocate that, and that they'll come to the table, but they'll keep their arms folded in front of them and won't deal. And once he senses that there's no opportunity for a real deal or for negotiation, then I think he goes the other direction. And he basically takes the case to the people in the midterm, and he, runs against a Congress that won't cooperate and won't try to address the country. And that will be the shift in the politics. And in the meantime, they will get done what they can get done through reconciliation and pass as many things as they can pass. But then it sets up, depending on the results of the midterm, it obviously sets up then the next presidential election. And, who knows at this point. I tend to think that Biden, if he has gotten some of the things done that he wants to get done, but not everything, I personally think that he will run for re-election. There's all kinds of speculation he'll step aside, like Kamala Harris, inherit, the role of leader of the party. But I don't know. I think I know Biden pretty well, and I think he's determined to kind of do as much as he can do and get done as much as he can get done.
How do you think that they would get her in front? What can she do to be more visible? It seems like right now she's involved mostly in discussions around the border and immigration. What other areas could she start taking charge of and leading?
Well, Biden has given her, it's interesting, he's given her leadership roles on a lot of things. Yesterday in his speech in Tulsa, he designated her as the person that was going to actually work on these issues of racial equality and racial justice in the country. He had already designated her, as you said, on the issue of immigration. She has had a leadership role on the climate change, about everything that we've talked about so far today. She has been designated by Biden to be someone with a leadership role. Now, she's been a little less than out front in that capacity. She has not used that platform as much as one would think to really advance her own personality, her own quote unquote brand. But that might change over time. I think it's really hard. Vice presidents, and Biden of all people understands this well, they have to navigate very carefully and never getting ahead of the boss, but always being there to kind of demonstrate that you're making a difference. And the vice presidency itself, going back to Walter Mondale, has really changed substantially to become, a very critical element of how an administration accomplishes its goals ultimately. I mean, just about every vice president, maybe with the exception of Dan Quayle, since Walter Mondale back in the 1980s, has had a very significant role in taking on certain parts of the portfolio of governance. And I think Kamala Harris is someone who will do that, and probably we will see her emerge more, particularly if they're making any progress. I mean, she's going to be at the center of all of these discussions that we've been talking about today about how, the Biden agenda is going to move forward. She's always there. I mean, I don't know if you notice this, but I do. Every time Biden does a public event, she is right there with him. She is, an equal partner, at least in terms of what the media coverage is and the public role. And I think Biden is doing that very consciously and very deliberately because he respects the role of the vice presidency, having been one himself. So, I do believe that she's got staying power. And, part of that will be how she uses her own role, her own bully pulpit, if you will, to help the Biden administration achieve its goals.